Things just got serious as BitMEX, a well-recognized and large crypto exchange, just dropped a cryptic message on X saying to keep your eyes peeled because they have some news that's definitely going to have a ripple effect on the market. And what comes next will create for a $1 trillion wave of capital that will pump your XRP bags. And although we don't yet have details surrounding what they're referring to, it's likely this has to do with a post that Brad Garlinghouse made back in April surrounding the CME group and their launch of capital efficient futures on XRP. Now, for those of you guys who aren't too familiar, the CME group stands for Chicago Mercantile Exchange and is one of the largest, if not the largest, derivatives market in the world. And this gets even more exciting when you think about which cryptos are set to dominate through the rest of the bull market, as it's highly likely that compliant digital assets are going to be winning the long game in crypto. One of those being Ripple and XRP. Not only because of their outcome with the SEC in their lawsuit, but also because they're above board in virtually every single factor when it comes to doing business in the United States and even having a stable coin that is 100% compliant, 100% backed, and even MiCA compliant in Europe. Still, some really wacky things are happening in the broader market, which could seriously impact the crypto market. For example, the Fed has quietly been buying billions in bonds, leading one former market maker to say that this is a ticking time bomb. Or the fact that the US consumer sentiment is getting even worse than 2008 and the recession in the 80s. And another piece of data surrounding auto loans is showing that we have some serious delinquencies on the rise. In other words, the average person who bought a car on credit is no longer able to make those payments and is now delinquent. And we're basically back up to where we were in 2020. Yet none of this is showing up in the broader market as crypto markets and the stock market have been rallying. So to put things bluntly, it doesn't seem like we're out of the proverbial woods just yet. So what comes next? How do you approach your XRP bags through the summer? And will we continue to see crypto rally for new all-time highs? Or was this just a retrace before the next leg down? Well, stay tuned because I'll cover all of that in this video and even share my personal opinion and takes on what I'm doing with my crypto into the upcoming months. And also, if you haven't already, be sure to head on over to the Bull Runners HQ Twitter or X account to enter our $100 worth of XRP giveaway. Here was last week's winner, and every single week we will be giving away another $100 worth of XRP. And in order to actually enter, all you have to do is like the pinned post, comment XRP below, and sign up for a Blowfin account using our link, where you will get a 10% deposit bonus. In other words, if you deposit $50K, you get $5,000 directly credited to your futures account only through that link. Then every single Sunday, we actually announce the winner in our daily email newsletter, where you can click right here and it will take you to a page that shows you how to get a free ebook anyways and unlock the 23 secrets to become a crypto millionaire. So you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by simply checking it out and making sure that you see who wins this next week. And also, we only have about 67 people that have actually entered, and we share these videos with thousands of people. Every single week you have a chance and you can enter. So you might as well enter, because you could be that lucky winner of $100 worth of XRP. And as always, my friend, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the channel, my friend. If you're new here, my name is Paul, and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PAULIEDEFI. I really want to quickly cover the macroeconomic side of things and kind of curtail that into the crypto market and how things could play out. Right now, I am not 100% risk on, which means not all of my cash is directly in crypto right now. I'm still sitting on some cash, and I've been deploying capital over time since Bitcoin broke above the $88,000 level. And this is something that I share directly with our members at Altcoin Pro University before everyone else. So if you caught that trade and arguably all of the other crypto trades that came along with it because I was entering the altcoin market as well, just a little bit less with the same amount of capital. At the end of the day, the crypto markets have been looking really strong. Yet over and over and over again, we're getting more and more negative news. And so when we see all this negative news, it can lead me to feel a little bit fearful, and it could also potentially create for an environment where you feel like you need to sell your crypto because you're worried that some major crash is going to occur. But one thing I really want to preface this with is the fact that typically in May, we have this old phrase, sell in May and look away, because through the summer, we experience a summer lull. Fund managers are on vacation. No one really wants to trade stocks or crypto or risk on asset classes. And ultimately, you don't really see that much gains. If anything, May has typically been a very poor month, but not this May. This May, we've seen crypto markets rally hard. As a matter of fact, we even saw a period of time for 5 straight weeks where Bitcoin rallied from the low of $74,000 all the way to a high of $105,000, currently sitting at the previous weekly all-time high right back here in December. So things are looking really strong for a May. So even with all of this bearish news, when I see this type of underlying market strength or structure, I actually want to be a bit more bullish. However, I still want to enter at the right time, and I also want to practice good risk management, because any one of these things can create some alarms in the market where more market participants sell, especially if the data comes in way worse. The first thing that we're going to look at is the fact that auto loans have seen serious delinquencies and are rising at an alarming pace. In other words, we are slightly below the post-2008 peak. People are buying cars, can't afford them, losing their jobs, they're not able to pay for the actual loan. These delinquencies are rising, and arguably a lot of these cars are going to get repoed. But really, the signal that this is going to send to investors and the markets is the fact that the average US consumer is actually struggling to pay all of their bills. And that would include one of the necessities. Even if it's not a necessity to take a loan for a car, you should be buying that outright. Many people, this is how they operate and live. And so it's just one indicator that people are struggling. And if they're struggling to pay for their car, what else are they struggling to pay for? This will have a ripple effect through the rest of the market as they spend less and less money that they simply do not have. Then I saw another post about the Fed quietly bailing out the bond market with another $43.6 billion injection. In other words, they're trying to save the market from crashing completely. And this is what we would call QE, quantitative easing. Typically, what you will see is the markets rally on stuff like this. But if it's happening quietly and they're not making major announcements and people caught it, then something else is going on and the Fed might actually be trying to hide it. And again, I did share this post from Josh Mann, which you can look into. This guy called the exact time and situation, or price, I should say, that Bitcoin would be trading at months in advance. And so he gained a crazy amount of followers. But this guy was a former market maker in the US 30-year Treasury bonds at Solomon, which is a huge investment bank. And he's basically saying that this is a ticking time bomb that is being swept under the rug. In other words, this is a missed auction. That means there were not enough bids to cover the offering. So guess who stepped in? The Fed, which means no one's buying bonds at the Fed. And if this truly is a ticking time bomb, this is going to create for a crash in the US dollar, unlike the likes of anything we've ever seen before. Right now, he's blaming fiscal policy, monetary policy, but eventually they're going to pull the rug and find the dead bodies. A big print is coming. In other words, the only reason a big print would be coming is because we're trying to save our butts and the dollar because everything is crashing. In other words, once everyone smells the stench, people are going to run for the doors. And so this is slightly scary, arguably more than any other piece of data that I'm sharing. However, I still don't want to be terribly bearish because the markets are not responding just yet to this, which leads me to believe that markets can still rally far longer than you would ever expect. And this all makes sense as consumers are not only getting slammed more and more and more, their actual sentiment has declined by 1.4 points to 52.2, which is the second lowest reading in the history of the survey. This is lower than 2008, lower than the 80s. And Americans have really been pessimistic about the economy. And if they're pessimistic, if the majority of people think that things are bad, what they're typically going to do is they're going to hold on to whatever cash or capital that they have. They're not going to go and spend that. That money won't make its way into the market, and ultimately stocks and cryptos will suffer because people tend to want to hoard cash or gold in situations where they're uncertain. But then you combine this with that bond market situation and things could get really bad. It's like a little spark in a forest that can turn into an entire forest fire overnight. And so my aim in sharing this information isn't to scare you out of your position or bags, because again, things are extremely bullish in the crypto market right now, especially for a May, even with all of this negative economic data, which leads me to believe that there is far more underlying strength than we actually previously expected, and that we're still going to experience a bull run that is insane. And so now I'm going to go and share some of this more positive news, especially as the US opens the door to innovation through crypto regulation and legislation. And one of the first major pieces of news that's pretty exciting is the fact that Michael Saylor's MSTR stock, or MicroStrategy, rebranded its strategy, has delivered in just 12 months over 15 years of S&P returns. In other words, it has far outperformed virtually everything else and is actually one of the best, if not the best, investment in the entire S&P 500 in terms of the fact that it's returned far more. Why? Because they hold more Bitcoin than anything else, and investors were greedy to get that Bitcoin exposure. That said, I do believe it's trading at multiples that are likely going to cause some short sellers to come in. And at the end of the day, I'd be selling this stock short in order to just buy and hold Bitcoin directly. Spot Bitcoin, withdraw it through my own cold storage wallet, and be my own custodian. I don't need MicroStrategy doing all sorts of levered plays with my own Bitcoin. Another major piece of news is the fact that 90% of banks are now rolling out their own stablecoins, or I shouldn't say stablecoins their own, just stablecoins in general. Cross-border, business-to-business payments, and speed lead the charge. And as you can see here, the reason that banks are going to be using stablecoins, the question is which stablecoins, right? And arguably the two that are compliant everywhere in the world are USDC and RLUSD, which is the stablecoin directly from Ripple, as they modernize the financial system and do all sorts of really cool things, not just cross-border payments or payment acceptance or treasury liquidity, merchant settlement, business-to-business invoicing, but also real-world assets and asset tokenization, which is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. So at the end of the day, banks now are going to be using stable coins, and the biggest and the safest and the best and the ones that are backed one-to-one will be winners. And one of those is definitely RLUSD, which a lot of that liquidity is likely going to find its way into the XRP ledger. And finally, we have this news directly from BitMEX, which had people's eyes popping a bit like, what is actually going on? This is a very cryptic message. The fact that they have some news that's definitely going to have a ripple effect on the market. And I believe BitMEX, being a futures exchange in crypto, is really just kind of pointing to this post directly from the CME group that starting on May 19th, they're going to trade regulated capital efficient futures on XRP, whether they're larger or micro-sized contracts. And again, it's important to note that if people are currently using the CME to trade in the derivatives market, they're not going to go and try to get access or exposure to XRP everywhere else, because that creates a lot of headaches. They might have to go through a committee. They might have to talk to investors if they're moving a lot of money. At the end of the day, they want to trade where they're already at. And so offering XRP futures directly on the largest derivatives market in the world is going to be huge. And that happens May 19th. This is going to create a lot of inflows and interest into the XRP token, and I do expect it to do decently well into this event. And so you combine this news with the fact that it's essentially one of the most compliant and safest cryptos in the entire market, aside from Bitcoin, and I would even argue more so than Ethereum at this point. It definitely has more interest and has outperformed Ethereum pretty consistently while Ethereum's been lagging. I thoroughly expect XRP to take the cake in this bull run. And so the reason that a lot of these other DeFi cryptos or random cryptos are not doing as well as some of these older, more stable cryptos like XRP is because of one thing and one thing alone. The market is choosing compliance. They want cryptos that are safe, secure, are looking to be regulated to operate legally in the United States and not skirt regulation. And ultimately, that is where the money is flowing. As in one case, JP Morgan, operating under strict regulatory oversight, has built a permissioned crypto platform. And again, notice permissioned, that limits access to verified users. Despite these guardrails, its daily transaction volume has soared to 2 billion, up over 127% year over year. And yes, a lot of major players are going to build their own DLT, but at the end of the day, they're going to need to use one crypto or one system in order to do a lot of global money transfers and remittances worldwide between many different banks, and they're not going to want to provide that service. It's a lot of hard work and headaches, which is why firms like Ripple are designing digital assets with their compliance built in. And right here, this article says that exactly, as Ripple's recent stablecoin launch was structured under New York's limited purpose trust company framework, making regulatory adherence seamless and scalable. And so if this is the case, guess who all of these big banks are going to want to run with and operate under, or use their technology and even potentially adopt their DLT or the XRPL? That is none other than Ripple. And so if anything, right now is actually the perfect time to be accumulating while people are fearful and markets are continuing to rally. As you can see, XRP has consistently been in an uptrend and saw a bit of resistance at the 260 level. However, with the current market structure, I expect it to not only break above 260, but go well above the $3 range and into new all-time high territories. We recently saw a strong support and a bounce at the $2.30 range. And also, when you go ahead and pull up some EMAs, you can see that we're seeing a lot of support. The blue line is above the orange line, or the 10 EMA is crossed over the 20 EMA, which is bullish. We're being supported consistently and bouncing above those EMAs alongside the horizontal support, alongside the fact that we are now back in bullish territory on Bitcoin and the entire crypto market. So with all of that said, if anything, you should be looking for opportunities to actually lever up on your bag. And I'm not talking about taking on leverage, just increasing your crypto portfolio by any means necessary. Which is why we put this quick little video together for you. Let's have a watch.
They told you crypto was a bubble, a scam, a dead dream. While they scared the general public, the world's most powerful institutions were buying it all up behind the scenes. BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard, governments around the world. At first, they dismissed crypto, but then, quietly, they moved in to buy as much as they possibly could. And today, Fidelity is officially recommending the average investor to hold 1 to 5% of their net worth in digital assets. So at first, they warned you to stay away, and now they're buying everything they can. But here's the truth, you're still early, not because of timing, but because you're not waiting for permission. 95% of people still have no clue what's really happening around the world in crypto, but you do right now. And that gives you the competitive edge. At Altcoin Pro University, we've built the gold standard in crypto education, giving everyday investors access to a professional research team, proven strategies, and worldwide community that it normally takes Wall Street type of money to afford. With 100+ expert curated classes, live weekly calls with crypto pros, daily market updates, altcoin picks, DeFi yield alerts, airdrop opportunities, and 24/7 customer support to answer all of your questions so you never invest alone. We don't guess, we don't hype, we don't chase rug pulls, we educate, we prepare, we position, and we prosper. And we're not new to this. Nearly 1,000 crypto investors from complete beginners to seasoned traders have already joined Altcoin Pro University, and they're learning faster than the 95% of the general public, allowing them to invest smarter, and they're doing it together, as a team, not alone.
Airdrops, that's been really helpful to multiply that portfolio and then just taking that money and putting into other things that I feel like will go up in value. So like Wormhole, that was a recent one, got about 11K from that. There's also these really good channels with trades that we have. Like it's up to you if you want to do them. I'm learning about all of that, so I made like 5 to 6 grand from there. So it's really cool. I'm up like what, I believe like 9x
I had a portfolio before. I said that I was already interested. I was already invested. So the size of it is now more than 3 times actually.
So I got started, I guess, dabbling into crypto space back in 2020. I've learned a lot. The main thing I learned, probably just because I'm not as active as other members, I do have a full-time job and other activities outside of crypto, but on the airdrops recently, I got a pretty big airdrop. At that time, it was like $1.80, so about $14,000.
Before I came across you guys, I actually had just gotten out of divorce and racked up a good amount of debt dealing with all that. So I hopped in there and I saw all the sub channels with the swing trades and the low cap gems, and like maybe 3 months after doing that, I was about halfway through my debt. It's you guys teaching it, but ultimately it's us that has to take the step to get out of this gambling mindset and learn how to use these tools properly. They're at our disposal. They're already there. It's easy to get to.
So click the link below to learn more about Altcoin Pro University, and you'll discover how you can try us out for 14 days risk-free. Nearly 1,000 crypto investors have already taken the plunge, and now it's your turn.
And so that's it for the video, folks. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And also you can check out Altcoin Pro University by clicking on that link, altcoinpro.com. It's in the description or in the pinned comment below. Make sure it's from the Bull Runners. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.